Hey guys, it's Britzza here. Now, you might be wondering what this is. In fact, I'm probably wondering that as well. But Geeks of Azeroth is coming to its year anniversary, and it's absolutely incredible to think what we've managed to do and how far we've come and how much support from all of you that we've had in the last year. So, last couple of days, I've really been thinking about a way to sort of spice up what we do as a show. And one of the things I was really thinking about was, in each show, we have a discussion topic, and we have, these segments where we sort of toy around with different ideas. And admittedly, our segments kind of play around with the WoW all over the place. But one of the things that I love doing in particular, and Zor and Tali certainly love doing, is talking speculatively about different ideas and topics that we really do care about. And there's often not enough sort of space within the show to really get to grips with any particular one topic. So what I've been thinking about doing for the last couple of days is sitting down, perhaps doing this as a weekly segment. I don't know if it's going to work. I'm hoping you guys will be able to tell me. But sitting down every week just to discuss a particular topic, a particular thought bubble, as it were, that was sort of floating around in my head. And so I guess to sort of trial run it, one of the things I wanted to talk about was WoW expansions. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to be talking about expansions in terms of what should be coming next or what I think the next expansion is going to be. That's been done so many times, and we've done it a lot as well. But instead, I want to talk about how the decision on where expansions go is reached. And I wanted to talk about if the community should have a bigger role in that. So just to quickly put some background on the topic, World of Warcraft is obviously over 10 years old, and it's been an absolutely incredible story from start to finish. I mean, if we look at just the expansions standalone, we've hunted down Illidan, we've conquered Icecrown, we've seen the world absolutely shattered, and we've messed up Pandaria. There's no hiding it. We completely tore that place apart. But now we're finding ourselves in the middle of Draenor, and we're working our way through that content, and we're literally on the cusp of seeing 6.2. But it really has been an incredible story within each expansion. There's been some incredible quest lines, whether it's the Lore Walker Show quests or the sort of rep groups that have existed in all the expansions. There have been some really good stories told in each of the expansions. And then if you look at it overall, it's an even more incredible story. I mean, if you think about the sort of overall narrative of the World of Warcraft, it's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. It doesn't always feel like we're living in an overarching story. We often, because we're in any expansion and we always talk about, what we've been up to in Warlords and things like that, it always feels like it's only ever one section of a story. But the overall story has been absolutely phenomenal. And so the obvious question a lot of people ask is, where are we going next? And again, whilst I don't want to talk about what I'd like to see going forwards, or what necessarily anybody would like to see going forward, I want to talk about how we reach that decision going forward, and as a community, how we can feed into that. So what are the factors then that are deciding where the WoW expansions go at the moment? Well, naturally, the dev team is going to be a huge push in that, because they're the people who've got together in Blizzard, and they have their own ideas and they have their own passions that are driving them to do what they want to do. And naturally, if you think about it, if we were all making a game, or if we were creating any form of content, we'd all want to sort of tell our own story or do it our own way. So in that sense, the dev team has every right to have their own vision and to really sort of see that through and tell the story with us, or at least tell it to us. On the other hand, however, one of the things that is really deciding and steering where WoW expansions are going is the genre, and Blizzard's desire to really push the genre out, which is something they've done quite well in the past. If you think about it, we've got Heaven's Ward coming out very soon. We've had games like The Witcher 3, which have really, really stood out as incredible fantasy. Witcher 3 stood out as an incredible fantasy story. And you've got so many other games that I can think of, and I'm sure you can think of, that really sort of stand out as incredible fantasy stories. But at the same time, there's a lot of overlap with them. If you think about it, how many times have we heard the same story told where orcs versus humans happens, and it just, there's a lot of potential for overlap, not just in gaming as well, whether it's fantasy television, movies, anime, or whatever you're thinking of. There really is not a lot of room to move about sometimes. And where Blizzard wants to go is not where everyone else is going. They want to stand out. That's probably where the Draenor expansions come from, is that it's kind of honing in on their own story, their own lore, which is something no one else can really touch. No one else can do a story about Gromhellscreen and the Iron Horde. So, you know, obviously it's them sticking to their niche area. So that's going to be a huge factor. And, you know, it's not just the issue for games, it's an issue for television, it's an issue for anybody who's trying to create content. At the end of the day, you see the people around you and you try and stand out, and that's the natural inclination. But the one thing, and this is where I'm starting to get into the topic now, the one thing that really does sort of break the mold with Blizzard compared to its other competitors, should we say, is its community. And I'm not saying other game developers and other game franchises don't have great communities. There are some incredible communities out there, but let's think about BlizzCon for a minute, and just all the energy and the creativity that comes out of BlizzCon. I mean, as just looking outside of BlizzCon as well, if you look on your Twitter feeds or any form of social media, and you see just how talented some of the community is in terms of artists, filmmakers, fictional story writers, cosplayers, voice actors, everything like that. You see so much talent on not just online, but you can see it in game. You know, people are role playing. There's so much passion and drive. And then you look at BlizzCon and where they harness that in the talent shows that they have, and you see these amazing people go on stage, and you know, whether it's something comical or it's something taken seriously, there's so much enjoyment and passion in the community. And in some ways, and I've said this before on the show, there are some people out there who I would put my hand up and say produce content that is above what we would deem as official content from Blizzard. That's not to say that the artists at Blizzard or the other sort of creators at Blizzard aren't up to scratch, but what I'm saying is that there is just some talent that just surpasses all others, and that, thankfully, is in the community, and it's absolutely brilliant to see. However, when you look at this talent, and again, hear me out on this one, because it's coming back to a point, it's not a criticism at all. When you see this talent and you see these artists, or you know, the role players, so on and so forth, you see them feeding their passion into what they're doing, but it's always within sort of existing parameters, within existing stories and designs. So you see fantastic artwork of Dalaran, or you see, you know, fantastic artwork of the Lich King and Jaina. I mean, I've had one as my screensaver. Or you read a great short story about characters fighting off the Burning Legion in Outland. All incredible content, all incredibly creative works. But at the same time, they're often stuck doing something that's kind of already existing. And I'm not suggesting that talent's wasted by any means. Again, I absolutely love seeing it, and it's really what keeps this franchise alive for me, because I have to admit, if the community was not doing what it was doing, I don't think I'd be able to really stick with Blizzard as much as I do. I would still be with it, but I would never feel as passionate about being part of the Blizzard community as I am today. But what I really want to see is the community start to get a little bit more say in not just how alive and energetic that this sort of existing story is, but also in what direction it's going. So you're probably wondering, like, Britzza, so what's your big idea then for this one? Well, it's twofold. There are two scenarios that I'd really love to see Blizzard try out a little bit, or at least toy with. I don't know. Again, this is just my ideas, and I'm just going to throw them out there. In one scenario, I would love to see Blizzard just turn around and say, let's have a series of competitions or events, however you want to put it, just some sort of events where they invite the community to write the backgrounds to a new character, or visualize the concept art for a new continent, or even like take it in game and role play out a new faction of, I don't know, for example, Blood Elves, that can then feed into an already existing idea for Blizzard. On the other hand, they might want to take it one step further, and they might want to say to the community, we want you all to get involved with a discussion that we're having about what sort of expansion we want to see next, or perhaps the one after the one we've already designed. And then they want to spend the following months after that initial sort of feeding in process to bring it all to life. And the difference between that scenario and the one before is that the stories, the zones, the concept arts, the narratives, the quests, it's all there to define. That Blizzard's literally saying, we've got a blank canvas and we want to see what sort of ideas you have before we start filling it in. So the idea that I've always thought about when I've been toying with this idea is that instead of, Blizzard saying we're going to take the fight to the Burning Legion in the next expansion or whichever expansion they want to do it, and they say, design the zones for us or come up with a zone for us, visualize something for us, they could say, we want to go to a new continent. You visualize that continent, toy around with different zones, and then you could kind of like a jigsaw, they could piece it together and play around with it. And when it comes to deciding which ones make it into that process, you could have polls which are sent through Battle.net accounts, or you could have a consensus from the Blizzard devs, or you could tie that into a Q&A where they sit down at, I don't know, some sort of conference, or they do some sort of web Q&A, or they perhaps attend some sort of Gamescom, and they let the community start feeding in as well. It gives them control in that regard. I'm not saying that Blizzard has to totally lose control, but what I'm saying is that they could really just open it up to the community, and that's the two scenarios that I'd like to see. However, there are problems, naturally. First one being, how long is this process going to take? I'm talking about giving months up to allow designs to feed in, and Blizzard probably doesn't have a lot of time, or if any time, to play around with that. The other thing is, will it actually make people happy? Because then, consensus doesn't necessarily apply to everyone, and some people might not get the expansion they want anyways. And then finally, there's that fear again about Blizzard losing control of telling their story. But in my opinion, it doesn't have to be an issue in any of those cases, because if you think about how long the process is going to take, you could try and incorporate that into existing design timeframes. You don't have to spend ages just getting a couple of ideas on zones. You could really just sort of open it up and for a matter of weeks feed in. I mean, you think about the selfie competition. I mean, you're submitting photos to Blizzard and they're screening them and then choosing their favourite one. It doesn't really make that much of a difference to do the same with zones or artwork. All you need to do is give more time for the people to create the artwork and a reasonable amount of time for them to jump in with character designs or to roleplay or whatever they want to do. And then if you think about whether the expansion is going to make everyone happy anyways, because not everyone will get their choice, it's true, they're not all going to get the content they went for, but the point is that the content is moulded and steered by the community, and people will see that. People will see that, a bit like a ship, the passion in the community is not just driving the sails forward. People can see that the ship is turning by consensus and that it's going to get new perspectives and it's going to impact on expansions after that. And that's really incredible. That, imagine if you were in the game and you knew that going to the next expansion you were going to find some quests that had been community designed, or characters that had been community designed, or something else like that. I don't know actually, but I'd certainly feel really sort of excited to see that content, because I know that my fellow gamers had designed it and it wasn't just something that was part of the official process. Not to say that's a bad thing again, but just think about how fun that would be. It'd be kind of like having an official modding system in a sense, but it's not really a mod. But anyways, that's beside the point. But finally, in respects to, does it take control from Blizzard, I don't think it does, because it's can be used to guide them. It's not a means to an end in the sense that they're going to lose control over their entire plots or characters and they're just not going to have any idea where this is going. It's simply to help feed into a general design process, and at the same time they could say, we've got this central plot, we've got characters, we've got zones, but there's no reason why you couldn't have players design a quest, or you couldn't have someone design a boss encounter, or a single boss design out of the 13 or 14 you're going to find in a tier. So Blizzard could retain a large amount of that content and then just give the community a chance to chip in, so that you have that flavour, that community flavour to progression, to raiding, and what else, maybe even garrisons. Maybe garrisons would feel better if the community was deciding what you actually got up to in garrisons. That could be really fun. But it's probably another discussion altogether just for garrisons. In any case, though, the first option would still stand. That's the option where Blizzard sort of takes existing ideas and lets people sort of colour in the gaps, as it were, and sort of choose the colours, I guess, to an already designed sketch. And it gives the opportunity for them to create content that will feed directly in, whilst letting Blizzard keep control of everything and showcase that process is happening. Again, it would sound so exciting just to see community designs appearing in game. It doesn't have to be my designs, I wouldn't care, but I haven't got the talent for the first part, but just to see people's designs going in would be absolutely fantastic. And I guess in some sense it sounds like I'm arguing for some sort of crowdsourced expansions. And I guess in some way I am, but that's really exciting. I mean, the thing about crowdsourcing is that it's exciting because you're seeing the people who back it actually, in a sense, feed into the game. You know, they're not necessarily designing it, but there's that sort of interaction that you just don't see when you're buying an EA game or any sort of console game necessarily. It's just nice to see that, you know, that passion for Blizzard's products and the innate talents of the community just coming together to help shape what Blizzard are offering. Whether you're a great artist, whether you're just playing about with your guildmates and role-playing, you know, it doesn't matter what you're doing as long as it's being recognised and it's feeding in to the story that we've all been telling, in a sense, for the last 10 years. So I guess we've seen some of this before. I mean, there's news about pets that have gone into the game through designs, and, you know, Blizzard's recognised that. But I'm calling for something much bigger. And Blizzard has a real opportunity to use these talents and really sort of just shape the story. I'm not going to keep going on about it because I feel like I keep using the same phrase again and again, but I have to admit that we're building this journey together. I mean, I know Blizzard are the ones who are holding the pen, but really this story is something that we're telling, and it's something we're engaging with. And I think if we're all building that journey together going forward and we're all feeding into that, then it's not a worry anymore about where it's going. I don't think people will be too scared or concerned or anxious about what the next expansion is, certainly when we're only halfway through the current content. I think we're just going to be happy where we are at that point, and I think that's probably the key to really getting the most out of any one expansion. You know, seeing the value in what we're doing now rather than hoping that the next one's going to be better. So there you go. I don't know how long this has gone on for, but it's certainly gone on for longer than I thought it would. But again, you know, this is where the discussion starts. I want to throw it out to you guys. You know, what do you think in terms of community-based content? Should Blizzard do more to bring it into its games? And if so, how would you like to see them do it? I mean, I threw out my 2 ideas, but what are your 2 ideas going forward? Or, you know, 3 or 4 ideas. It doesn't have to be 2. And what content would you want to see going forward? I mean, if you were starting to feed in now, what would you like to see? And also, if you disagree with what I'm saying, you know, feel free to say why. Why do you disagree? What would you find a problem with? So, by all means, share your comments on Twitter. You know, you've got the official Geeks of Azeroth Twitter at Geeks of Azeroth. You've got me at Britzza_EG, or you can email the show. You've got geeksofazerotheg@gmail.com. And yeah, I really do want to also hear your thoughts on this segment. Again, I'm trying it out. I haven't got really a set structure or any sort of sounders or anything like that, but I want to know whether this worked for you. And if it didn't, what would you like to see change, or what topics would you like to hear me discuss? I'm thinking about making this a Thursday segment, sort of in between, halfway through the week between Geeks of Azeroth episodes. But, you know, again, if it works a different time, feel free to say. But I think that's it. I think my thought bubble is about to burst. And with that, I do want to say thanks very much for listening. And there's so much going on in the next couple of weeks. We've got the anniversary coming up for Geeks of Azeroth, and obviously we've got the show on Saturday. We've got some guests lined up as well, which is going to be really exciting. And yeah, we hope to see you all there. And yep, that's about it. So I'll see you guys on the next Geeks of Azeroth.